Hi, everyone. Welcome to this month's Health Tech Entrepreneurs Meetup. Today's speaker is Becca Pearce, and she will be talking about the 3 things you need to understand about yourself to be a great CEO. So this topic resonates with me as I transition from being an academic researcher to a founder with my own medtech startup. Welcome, Becca. And so let's start with our usual intro. So I'm going to go down the list on my right. When I call on you, if you'd like to introduce yourself, please unmute and let us know who you are, what you're working on. If you're seeking help for anything, or if you're able to provide help, this is a great time to let everyone know. So I can start. Hi, I'm Neo. I'm the founder and CEO of Neurosonics Medical. We're developing a novel therapeutic ultrasound device for minimally invasive neurosurgery. And I'm also the VP of Business Development at the MDC Studio, a startup studio dedicated to building health and medical technology startups from very early stages. And I'm also an associate at the Verte family of funds, a family of venture funds focusing on high growth businesses in opportunity zones. So Becca, I'm going to skip over you because I'll let you introduce yourself later. Anza?
Hi, my name is Anza Goodbar, and I'm actually here just supporting Becca for this meeting. And so I'll just kind of be in the background.
Awesome, welcome. Great, Christina?
Hi, everybody. This is my second meeting joining. I'm relatively new to this community. I work at Johns Hopkins Tech Ventures.
Awesome,
Nice
welcome back. Cyrus?
Yes, hi, Cyrus Etienne Mogadam, founded RPM Tech, a product development company in Harford County. We have a complete design team of electrical, mechanical, firmware, software development, industrial design, and prototyping. And we'll take people's concepts and ideas and make them into real products that are manufacturable. We work with a bunch of companies in the area, as well as internationally. And we have a bunch of companies that we work with to manufacture the products in Maryland. It's good to meet everyone.
Awesome. Thank you, Cyrus. Frederick?
Hi, I'm Frederick Abramson. I have an early stage company, Golden Thread Technology, which will use DNA analysis to identify injury risks to athletes and provide ongoing guidance and insight on choices they can make in the same way that Google Maps does. I came to this through my adjunct teaching at Johns Hopkins in the biotechnology program in the master's, where I've been teaching the business courses for about 25 years. The kind of help I need, I need some people who can write computer code so we can get a prototype out. And I'm also interested, obviously, in fundraising, and any insights there will be helpful.
Awesome, welcome. Jillian?
Hi, I'm Jillian Hinker with Sisu Global. We're a medical device company here in Baltimore City, and we're increasing access to blood for hospitals through our device, the Hemofuse, which is an auto transfusion device. Basically, something that a device that allows you to donate blood back to yourself in surgeries.
Awesome, thank you, Jillian. Jonathan?
Hi, Jonathan Klaus. I'm a registered nurse and just here for kind of general information and to learn new things. Thank you.
Awesome, welcome again. Vin?
Hi, everyone. I'm Vin. I'm in the DC area. I'm in between roles right now doing some consulting to nonprofits and social enterprises. I'm still relatively new to the health tech space.
Awesome, and Wayne?
Evening, everybody. Wayne Sternberger, recently retired as a systems engineer from Johns Hopkins APL. And as part of my retirement, I did a startup company called BlockSynop, and we are commercializing a neural blockade monitor to help anesthesiologists understand whether regional blocks are working, how well they're working, where they're blocked, where they're working, etc. And we have a prototype that's being taken into FDA clearance right now and supporting clinical trials. So the help, I guess, is germane to the topic of today's conversation, is that we could really use a CEO, business strategist, fundraiser, because the last thing I want to do is a business manager, CEO, fundraiser.
Awesome. Thank you, Wayne. So I think that was everyone. So yes, I will hand it to Becca. So I'm happy to introduce Becca Pearce. She's the president and CEO of Extend Coaching and Consulting, an executive coaching firm that helps business leaders find their voice. She has a background in strategic and leadership positions within the health insurance arena, having worked for CareFirst, BlueCross, BlueShield, and Kaiser Permanente before being chosen by Governor O'Malley to run the Maryland Health Benefit Exchange. She then served as a vice president within the University of Maryland Medical System, and she's now an executive coach who helps clients lead with more confidence, deliver better results, and grow their companies faster. So thank you, Becca. I'll hand it off to you.
Sure. Thank you, everybody. And Wayne, you're actually directly on the right path, because the number one thing is noticing what you're good at and what you're not good at. So I'm going to go ahead and I have a couple of slides here today to talk about. I would like to open it up for discussion at some point, and Anza is going to help us do that, because I think when I share my screen, I can actually see you guys. So, so she's going to help me, and I need to, hang on one sec. I need to find my mouse. There it is. Okay. Okay. So can you see my PowerPoint? Yes. Okay.
Yeah, we can see it.
Okay. So what we're going to talk about today are the things that you need to understand about yourself to be a great CEO. And actually, I need to scroll down. Okay. So when you decided to go into the entrepreneurial space, how many of you thought that you might look like this when you were doing it? When in reality, you look a little bit like this. Because I'll tell you that I work with a lot of entrepreneurs who at some point in time look like this. They thought that it was going to be something that they didn't expect. It turned out to be something they didn't expect it to be. And there are times that you're actually questioning yourself whether you're on the right path. So we are going to talk today about a couple of things. But what I want you to do is just think about it. Why is this specific topic important to you? When you thought about coming to this today, what was it that you were hoping to get out of this? And I'm asking you for this because then your brain automatically starts looking for specific things while I'm talking, and you'll get more out of it. So I really want you to think about and even write down possibly, why is this topic important to you? And then I'm going to tell you a little bit about why this topic is important to me. So Nao just told you that I had been in the health insurance arena for 20 some years. I was appointed by Governor O'Malley to implement the Maryland Health Benefit Exchange in the state of Maryland. I was the CEO of Obamacare for the state of Maryland, for lack of a better term. And it did not turn on, and I lost my job quite publicly. Above the fold with a picture. And fortunately, I was able to land on my feet, which doesn't happen very often, but I ended up as a vice president in the university system. So I was very lucky to have that job. Fast forward to 2015, I could not hear out of my left ear. And I just sort of ignored it until somebody told me, you know, single-sided deafness isn't actually normal, and maybe you should get that checked out. So long story short, I go in to get my hearing checked. 5 weeks later, I'm getting a craniotomy. I have a brain tumor the size of a golf ball. And I spent the remainder of 2015 learning to walk again. My face was paralyzed for an entire year. I'm mostly deaf in my left eye, or mostly blind in my left eye. I'm completely deaf in my left ear. Big deal, right? Thankfully, it was operable, and thankfully, it was benign. The bad news is that's still a really big deal. And so I had to prove to myself that I could go back to work. And after I learned how to walk again and all of those things, I did go back to work, and I had to prove to myself that I could still do it. Until the day that I figured out that I could do it, and I thought to myself, what am I doing? I don't want to be in charge anymore. And so I left that job. I left university and went and started my own executive coaching firm. And this is where this really comes in, why this is really important to me. I had been a vice president, I'd been a CEO, I'd been all of these things. I knew for sure I was going to know exactly what to do when I ran my business. But when I opened my own business, my relationship with myself as owner and CEO of my new company was completely different than the relationship that I had had with myself when I was reporting to a board or to the governor or something along those lines. And it turns out that it's a very difficult space to manage. And so let me just give you an example. The first time I did my own product strategy, instead of saying to myself, oh, yay, you did your product strategy, that's great. I said, I cannot believe it took you so long to do your product strategy. I would have fired you by now. So I understand the questions that go along with completely uprooting what you have done well for a certain amount of time, and then shifting that and saying, hey, I want to take this and I want to do something in the field, but totally different. You now have a totally different relationship with yourself. And that's why it's important to me, because I want to help people work through that. So when I work with business owners, I work with mid-sized business owners and tech startups, two different groups. But when I work with business owners, we have a model that Extend works with. And what we do is we work with leaders through all of these different things: leading yourself, leading your company, increasing your productivity, scaling your processes, and looking to the future. And you'll see that it starts with leading yourself, because the more you know about yourself as a leader, the more you're going to be able to show up authentically and give people the space they need to grow themselves. And so by going through this model and the work that we do with people, all leaders increase their confidence, they give themselves more resiliency, they have a more feeling of freedom and to be where they actually want to be. And when we work with health techs, what we do is we work with health techs in all different phases of the life cycle. What you'll see is when you're a startup, when you think about startup, right, you've got 25 different hats on. You've got, like you said, your fundraiser, your CEO, your, insert all of those different, your marketer, your product manager, all of those things at once. What you need in a startup, and everybody's focused on delivering what you need now. To get to scale up, you need to start introducing business processes. You need to start thinking differently. And then to get to maturity level, you need to be thinking differently even more. You've got to have your processes in place. You've really got to have clear leadership roles. You got to have a clear leadership team. So we work with health tech companies in all phases to help them focus on where they need to be for growth. So here's what I know for sure in the work that I've done. First, I know that owning your own business is very different than working for somebody else. I know that we give an awful lot of power to our insecurities. And I know that there are ways to show up more powerfully and confidently, increase your team's performance by doing it, and to drive your business further. So we're going to talk about those today. So there's a fundamental mindset that I want you to think about today and going into this. It's okay to be unsure. I think as we have grown as adults, and as you think about the world that you have been in, right? Every single one of you is highly skilled and very successful. And so as we grow up in that space, we get more and more sure that we know what we're doing. But to really be able to become the CEO that you want to be and to be able to tackle all this, you need to be okay being unsure. So what we're going to cover today, we're going to cover some good news and some bad news. What's the so what? And we're actually going to go through an exercise for you too to help you take this home. So first, we're going to tackle some insecurities. The bad news is, I'm going to start with the bad news. What got you here won't get you there. Whatever you did in your teaching career, in your past career, is not the same thing that's going to get you where you need to be on the entrepreneurial journey. And that's for several different reasons. One is, by the way, Marshall Goldsmith is one of the premier executive coaches out there. And he wrote a book called What Got You Here Won't Get You There. And what he talks about is that the successes we learn from our previous successes, right? What we've learned from those often prevents us from achieving more success, because what we attribute to our successes in the past, we then attribute to, oh, that must have been good, we should keep doing that. But it turns out that often those things are actually not driving our success, and our success is actually in spite of some of those characteristics. Let me give you an example. So when I was the CEO, I was sure that the reason that I was so good at being a CEO was because I asked really pointed questions that really got to the bottom of things. Turns out people hated it. They didn't want me asking the pointed questions and being rude about it, right? They just wanted to know what they wanted to know, right? They wanted to feel comfortable in where they were and comfortable in the fact that maybe they didn't know the answer. So all of those things that I thought were actually leading to my success were actually, my success was in spite of those. The second piece is, I want each of you to stop for 1 second and think about your career. When's the last time you got promoted? I'm gonna bet that when you got promoted for your old job, being good at your old job. At least in corporate America, and I can't speak to academia, but at least in corporate America, people get promoted for what they were good at, not for being good leaders. So I often work with leaders to help them understand that having a conversation in the hallway is your job. Creating an environment where other people can do the work is your job. Your job is no longer actually sitting in front of the Excel file and doing that data analysis. And the third piece of this that I think is really interesting is what I just said earlier. All of those things that you've done to make yourself super successful in your old role, amazing. And they may not get you to where you need to be. But I also want to talk about some good news. The good news is some of what got you here will get you there. And you have the tools to figure out what those are and tap into them. So I want you to go back to your learning career. I want you to think about, all of the things that you've learned over your life. You have a history of learning new things. You have the capacity to continue to grow and use that in your new role. Secondly, I want to go back to, I want you to think about that old role again, and I want you to think about transferable skills. There are a lot of transferable skills, even though it may have been very specific to researching something. Well, the thing is, you ran a team, you pulled together data, you presented it to somebody, you have a lot of transferable skills that you can easily transfer to your new role. It's just being able to tap into those and figuring out what those are. And as we know, your prefrontal cortex is alive and kicking. And the fact that you're here, willing to kind of have this conversation and look in the mirror is a huge starting point. So some of what got you here will get you there, but not all of it. So I want to talk about Gordon's ladder of learning for a little bit. So Gordon posits that we have 4 stages of learning: unconscious incompetence, conscious incompetence, conscious competence, unconscious competence. And when he talks about it, what he says is, essentially, right, when you're in unconscious incompetence, you're in this place where you're like, dude, I got this licked, right? I know exactly what I'm doing, but you don't know what you don't know until all of a sudden somebody comes up and asks you a question and you go, oh my God, I don't know, right? And all of a sudden you're in this awareness space and you go, oh, I have no idea what's going on here. And you start to get very scared, right? And as overachievers, because we were talking about this before everybody joined, I'm assuming that everybody here is an overachiever or you wouldn't be here, right? As overachievers, we then go, oh my God, I need to learn, right? So you learn everything you possibly can do, except you're still in this place of, I realize, right, that I don't know what I'm talking about, but I'm trying to get to this point of conscious competence. I'm trying to take that step from 2 to 3, but wow, that hurts. I got to change what I was thinking. I'm unsure about myself, and that's a really uncomfortable place to be because I've been really good at my job for a long time and I'm really uncomfortable right now learning this. Before you can get to this point of trying and working at it, before you can get to a point where you're in unconscious competence, right? This is the point where you don't have to think about it anymore. When I was learning to walk again, I literally had to say to myself, left, right, left, right. I was in this space of complete incompetence, right? My brain had to be at that point. And now, right, that's second nature. I can actually walk again is perfectly great, right? But it took a long time to get to that point where you're unconscious about it again. And so until you get to this phase where you have a, maybe this is fundraising. Maybe this is something that you need to learn that process before you get to that mastery stage. And so it's interesting because what they talk about in this also is that you have multiple different emotions that are coming up. When you realize that you don't know what's going on, your reaction is fear. Then when you're in this conscious competence thing and this in between these two, and you're trying something new, it's frustrating, it's angry, right? I should be able to do this. And so when you think about it, not until you get to the top do you start feeling satisfied again. So when you think about these emotions, fear, anger, and frustration, these are all potential indicators that you're learning something new. And it's really a way for you to recognize, like, what's going on for me here? Why am I feeling this way? And so then I'm going to shift to one of my best friends, should. Should is such a lovely word. I'm being sarcastic. I should be able to do this. It's just running a business, right? I should, like, I have a PhD. I should be able to run a business. How hard can this possibly be? I run into this all the time with my clients. Here's the thing. Should assumes judgment. There is an expectation that you're putting on yourself that you believe that something that you're doing should be easier, right? When I think about this too, I want to go back to your education for a second. K through 12, I want you to add this up in your head, right? K through 12, undergrad, grad, postgrad, all of those years, add those up in your head for a second. And then tell me how much of that time actually taught you how to be an entrepreneur. Because anytime that you're thinking to yourself, I should be able to do something in your new entrepreneurial role, you're putting an expectation on yourself. And what I have found when I work with my clients on shoulds, because I'm really good at noticing when people say should, when I ask what's coming up for them and where it's coming from, the immediate reaction is to say, well, society, or my parents, or whatever. Like, there's just this expectation, but when it really comes down to it, it's really you. It's really you putting that expectation on yourself. So we're going to talk about what to do about that, because this is a real big demon. So we're going to talk about that for a minute. But I want to shift before we get there to here's one thing that I forgot that this was going to be there. No one likes to be should upon. Keep that in your mind. So we're going to actually talk about they should. This one's also fun. God, they should have known. They should have done this before I asked them, right? They should have listened to what I had to say. Here's the thing. Should in this case assumes judgment, but it's actually on them. But the important thing is, it's actually time for you to look in the mirror. So Jocko Willink is a former SEAL, and he has a big business right now on leadership. He has a book where he talks about the importance of ownership at all times, right? It doesn't matter who you are. If you're the CEO and somebody should have done something, what didn't you do, right? If you're the employee and you're pissed off, what didn't you do? The employee didn't actually voice their concerns to the leader, right? But if the leader says, oh, they should have known, what should they have known? What didn't I communicate? So I want to talk about the solutions here, because what I want to do is be able to give you the tools to walk away with today. So when you are thinking, all of these go through a process of notice, question, ask. So, and noticing is the first step of almost everything, right? Which is why I said to Wayne, this is so great. You need to notice what you're good at and what you like to do and what you don't like to do. So when you're shoulding yourself, I want you to notice, I just said should. And then I want you to question, what expectation am I putting on myself? Because the other thing I guarantee you is it's probably not a fair expectation. So is that a fair expectation? And I want you to give yourself the grace you would give a friend. That is going to drive, being nice to yourself is one of the best things you can do to grow as a leader. A lot of us overachievers were taught that that negative voice got us to where we are today. But what you'll find, and Kristen Neff does a lot of research on this in the last couple of years, what her data will show is that actually being nice to yourself helps you grow further and those around you grow further. So what do you do when you're accidentally shooting others? When you realize that you're frustrated with other people, there's usually some expectation. What is it that they should have been doing? Then I want you to question yourself, look in the mirror and say, how did I create this? What did I communicate incorrectly or communicate ineffectively? What didn't I do here? And then I want you to take accountability for it and take action to alter future outcomes. What can I do differently so this doesn't happen in the future? I have a story because I was talking to, or I was listening to somebody talk the other day, we're gonna call him Tim. And he was telling a story. He's a guitarist and he's like guitar, he plays guitar at home, acoustic guitar. He's never played professionally or anything like that, but he plays every year at his Labor Day party. And his friend Joe came up to him and said, Tim, do you mind if I give you some feedback? And and Tim said, well, yeah, of course, because Tim's a coach, right? And he loves feedback. Of course I want feedback. I want to hear what people have to say. And Joe was like, dude, like, I'm not totally sure that you should really do it this year. Like, did you notice last year that everybody got up and went to play cornhole when you got up to play? Like, did they ask you to do this? And Tim was like, well, yeah, I mean, they asked me. And Joe said, well, I just don't understand why it's always about you. Like, I feel like you always need to be in the limelight. And I just don't understand what that is. And Tim was like, I mean, I've been friends with Joe for a really long time. Now, meanwhile, how many of you are like freaking out about why on earth is this guy friends with Joe? Because as a coach, I was like coming through the phone when I heard this story. But meanwhile, what he said was, until I realized that was me. Joe was me talking to myself. So when you think about this, we all have inner critics. And before you decide that you're too polished or too cool, every single one of us has an inner critic. So when we sit here and we're on the outside, and because we have been so successful in our careers, it is so easy for us to say, oh, no, I got it, I'm fine. But meanwhile, the voices in the background are telling you other things completely. Just like Joe was telling Tim, like, do you really need to be on stage all the time, right? You're a failure, you suck, like you're a total fake, everybody's gonna figure you out. So I'm gonna take us through a little bit of a process here to help define our inner critic. Because I think this, when you think about this, this is one of the greatest things that you'll be able to take with you. So the first thing I want you to do is take out a piece of paper, and I want you to, for each one of these, there are about 5 questions. What I want you to do is think about what voice is the loudest for you? What are you doing here? Why should they listen to you? Everybody's going to figure you out. You're crazy for trying this. Like, everybody's got different ones, but what is the loudest inner critic for you? Next, I want you to think about this. All of our inner critics came from somewhere. There was a point in our life, some point in our history, where they were helpful to us. They saved us from something. So think about, nobody wants to hear what you have to say. I imagine somebody who wanted to share their opinions when they were younger, but didn't get the response they wanted from their parents. And so that inner voice said, nobody wants to hear from you, because the voice wanted to save that person from disappointment on a regular basis moving forward. So where do you think that voice came from for you? Okay. So next we're going to actually take this and we're going to give it life. What does it look like? What does it sound like? What color is it? Is it hot? Is it cold? Does it sit on your shoulder? Does it sit in somewhere in your body? What does it look like? I want you to literally take about 20 to 30 seconds and just start to imagine exactly what your inner critic looks like, your loudest inner critic. I have one client whose loudest inner critic is a coach, like a soccer coach. Come on, come on, come on, let's go, let's go, let's go. When all she wants to do is sit and think about stuff, right? So so it can be somebody that may be relatively good, right? But I really want you to give structure to this, because what this allows you to do is think it. I want you to look at it and I want you to say, you know what, thank you. I totally appreciate you. You totally worked for a long time, but you're not serving me anymore. I'm the adult. I got it. Every morning, I put my loudest inner critic in the corner. Like, this is something that I use every day. Thank you. I got it from here. You can go sit in the corner now. This is a tool that you can use every day when you start to question yourself, especially on the days that you're wondering why you're getting out of bed and whether or not you're on the right path, whether or not you're ever going to be able to get the funding that you need. Insert whatever the question is, you can have a conversation with your inner critic. So I'm going to move a little bit now to the imposter syndrome, which in the coaching world is a big buzzword right now. And I will say very right up front, it is not an actual diagnosed syndrome, but a lot of people talk about it. The definition of the imposter syndrome is being plagued by thoughts that make you feel inadequate or unqualified for your role despite your experience. And before anybody kind of shuts this down and says, oh no, I got it, I want to share some data with you. In a recent study in 2019 of over 5,000 employees and 5,000 workers, including CEOs all across the board, 85% of people showed some symptom of imposter syndrome. The interesting thing is only 25% of people are aware of it. So let me give you some of the symptoms. You play down praise because you don't feel like you deserve it. You think your career trajectory is actually down to luck. Right? I was really lucky I was in the right place at the right time. Or here's the really good one. You worry that others are going to figure out that you don't know what's going on. I tell you about this because it's important to recognize everybody's in the same boat. Every single person around you is thinking the exact same thing. Don't compare your insides to their outsides. People do a really good job of looking like they're fine, when really inside they're very concerned. So when you compare yourself to the outside of somebody else, you're not really seeing the whole picture. So let me recap here a little bit. What are we talking about tackling your thoughts? When you feel like you're in this space and you're beginning to question, like, why am I here? What am I doing? Do I really know what the hell I'm doing? Recognize everybody's in the same boat with you. And then when we talk about, this is one of the monsters in the middle. I actually Googled like booger monster and that's what came up. So, maybe this is your inner demon. Time to put your inner demon in the corner, say, thank you. I have it from here, I'm good. And when the shoulds come up, notice, question, act. All of these things are tools within you. You have the ability now. The beauty of noticing is it gives you the ability to stop and change your reaction. I'm sure that every single person here knows about neuroplasticity and the ability for you to change your neural pathway that in the past said, oh, when I hear this voice, I do this. By noticing, you now have the ability to say, I hear this voice, stop, act differently, create a neural pathway, new neural pathway. So when we go back to this model, what we just did was we worked on one very small piece of leading yourself. And as you think about how you're going to grow as a leader, think about all of these things. And my argument is that as you allowing yourself to feel these things and notice these things about yourself and recognize what you're going through allows you to give other people the space to do the same. It actually increases productivity with your teams when you show up as an authentic leader and sometimes question and sometimes say, I don't know the answer. You are much more authentic. People are much more willing to follow you. It increases team productivity and allows your businesses to grow faster. So I want you to take 1 minute and just, what did you discover here? And what's one bite-sized action you're going to implement when you get back to the office? I want you to write that down, because here's what's going to happen. We're going from 5 to 6. You're going to get up. You might feed your dog or your cat. You got to make dinner. You got stuff to do tonight. By the time you get in the office tomorrow, you're going to have 100 emails waiting for you, and you're going to completely forget everything that went on here. So I want you to write down right now one bite-sized action that you're going to take to implement this. And then I want you to imagine a world where you wake up every day and you're confident. You know you're making the right decisions for your company. You know what the direction you want to go. You know what you're good at. You know what you don't like to do. You know what you're going to delegate. You know what you're going to give to somebody else completely. Right? Beyond delegate, you're going to get that completely off your company's plate and you're going to outsource it. You know exactly what you need to do to grow your business because you are confident in your leadership. You have a really good understanding of who you are. You understand exactly what you need to do. If that feels like something that you might be interested in, you can work with us. We are more than happy to help you. So if this is you, you're a high-performing leader in your own right, which by being here, you absolutely are. You recognize there's room to enhance your leadership abilities and you're willing to invest yourself in your business, go ahead and take a picture. What I'm offering is a 30-minute meeting with me to just understand, can we help you? Because I'll tell you that sometimes we can't help you. Sometimes if you need support and you already got your support from the MDC, then there's no role for us. We do not duplicate what the MDC does. But I certainly don't want to step on any toes anywhere there. So if you're interested in connecting with us, then please feel free to take a picture there and reach out. So ultimately, I'm open for questions. I'd love to hear anything that you have to say. Naya?
Yeah, that was really helpful. Thank you, Becca. Yeah, this resonates with me because, I used to think that executive coaching, I used to think sounds like, a nice to have, not necessarily a must have, but I can kind of look back and realize that my mindset really did affect, my attitude, which affects my behavior. I know that when I first founded my company, I didn't feel like a CEO. So I used to call myself the COO and just didn't have a CEO. And it took me a while to actually feel confident telling people that I'm the CEO. So I can look back and see how that, really affected my behavior and, how unsure I felt. So yeah, I wanted to first ask, what are three takeaways that everyone can take away, 3 bite-sized chunks? And I love to, this is what I love to publicize on LinkedIn as well.
And are you opening up for everybody? You're asking me that.
Oh yeah, I'm asking you, and then yeah, everyone else is welcome to jump in as well.
Yeah, I think the most important, actually the first and most important thing is you're not alone.
Yeah.
Whatever feelings you're feeling, you are not alone. Everybody is feeling them. The second thing is, I think that noticing is the first step, right? You have the tools to start noticing and to change the way that you've reacted in the past. So stand in yourself and know that you have the confidence to take this in the right direction, and that, we tend to believe those voices are real and they're always true, but somehow we never believe our cheerleaders, right? The cheerleader voices, we never believe them, right? We're gonna say they're not smart enough, right? But we always listen to the negative voices. So stop and notice and choose to not listen to them, right? And then I think that the last piece too is just knowing that there are ways for you to step away and stand in your confidence moving forward.
Becca, another way I heard someone express what you started with is, should is your mother talking to you.
Yes, yes, you're absolutely right. And none of us want our mother standing on our shoulder all the time. Any other thoughts?
I guess I just have a question on, you know, again, I've actually realized when I was introducing myself that I didn't even say my title, because again, I've shifted into the leadership of my company recently. So I was curious on, you know, people talk about being your most genuine self and like trying not to copy someone else in a CEO or leadership. So I'm curious on that process to kind of marry kind of our natural personalities with the personality that probably is necessary for fundraising or other activities.
Well, and that's a great question. And I think that as you are stepping into this leadership role, you are in that leadership role for a reason. And so recognizing that what you bring to the table as a starting point is the most important thing, because people react to authenticity. People don't react to, I'm supposed to stand in this space and look like this and be this plastic, I'm asking for money. Now, there are certain things. So when in coaching, we talk about the difference between adaptive changes and technical changes. And there are some technical things that you need to know. What is it they're looking for? How are they going to react if I do this? You know, some very technical kind of things like this is how you present to so-and-so asking for money. But then from an adaptive perspective, it's really being able to stand and like, I just see how my shoulders just went down, just being able to stand and be like, I'm really confident in who I am. I'm the leader of this organization. I believe I'm passionate about what we're doing. And so it's really taking the time to figure out who you are and digging deep for what you bring to the organization. It's interesting, just as a side note, I'm doing a talk at a large organization in the next couple of weeks, and they talk about, you know, executive presence. And I thought to myself, well, what the hell is executive presence? Right? When you think about it, what does executive presence really mean? And prior to the pandemic, executive presence meant act like a man, right? Show up like everybody else in the blue shirt and the tie. And post-pandemic, what we're finding is that employees and everybody around us wants authenticity, right? Think about all the people whose dogs showed up in the Zoom over the past 3 years, right? There is a shift that people are starting. Executive presence is that authenticity, is that ability to show up and sometimes say, you know what, I don't know the answer. I don't know if that.
Yeah, that answers my question, because again, like personality wise, I know that I'm not the most like bombastic, right? But there can be quieter leaders. So I think, yeah, seeing how that can be recognized. So thank you for that.
Welcome. There's also an ability to be E.F. Hutton. I don't know if I just aged myself, right? But, you know, over 50% of big CEOs are introverts who are in a position where when they speak, other people listen. So you don't need to be bombastic. What you know, as long as what you're saying makes sense and is connecting with people. Frederick, did you have your hand up?
I'm sorry, was that a question to me?
Yeah, I didn't know if you had your hand up.
Oh, I did. That was to mention about your mom tell
Oh.
them that what you should do.
You keep bringing her back to this meeting.
No, I just found it a very powerful way of looking at it, since it provided a level of not too much judgmental clarity, but a little bit of the asymmetry of what it is when you're growing up.
Yes, you're absolutely right. And I find that people don't recognize when they're shooting themselves.
Yeah. Probably the biggest one I have to cope with is that I should be able to say things, particularly in communication, in written communication, to a stranger that grabs their immediate attention and response, which is a kind of goal for perfection.
Mm.
And to accept the idea that a lot of people don't care. So,
Well, and so out of curiosity, where does that should come from for you?
I think that one comes in very directly from my father, who I wrote this down when you were talking. For most of the time that I grew up with him until my parents divorced, used the word stupid on a regular basis.
Mm.
And it turns out my two half sisters and half brother had the same thing happening to them. So it wasn't just me, but he couldn't tell me anything about what I did without calling me stupid about what I did.
So your mind is saying you've got to be able to reduce complexity to simplicity, and if not, you're stupid.
Yeah, and if you fail, you're stupid. And I remember, for what it's worth, when I got a new bicycle when I was like 4 or 5 years old, I was riding it on the street in Philadelphia, and I ran into a curb and bent the frame. My punishment was to be called stupid and that I would never have the bike fixed.
Wow.
That's pretty severe for a 5-year-old.
That is very severe for a 5-year-old. And so that 5-year-old probably created a voice for you to keep yourself safe.
Yes, totally.
Yeah. And when you think about it that way, being able to thank that 5-year-old for saving you and then saying, you know what, I'm good. I got it from here.
Well, yeah. I mean, there's more to it, and more to the story. But yeah, surviving that gave some positive elements and skills as well.
Yes, for sure. For sure. And so your job is to tap into those when you need them, recognizing which pieces are helping you and which pieces, pieces got you to where you are, and then recognizing and letting go of the things that the voices that are still there that are keeping you. I should be able to write this. Well, I'm going to guess that what you have is very complex, and making it simple is probably a hard process.
And it's interesting, and listening to you right now, one of the things that 5-year-old did is it allowed me to let other people help me.
Wow.
And that's been most of what's happened is other people have come in and said, here's what we can do. Here's what I want you to do to move to the next level. Here's what we see. So it's opened me to other people entering my life and helping me move to another thing.
Wow. That's amazing. Talk about a positive that comes out of it.
Yeah.
In the middle of all that trauma. I am not negating the trauma.
No, I know. I'm laughing because these things do provide a positive and a negative. There's always that balance, but it didn't occur to me that that's what opened me to being able to receive help and other people's entering my life and saying, you can go to this level.
Right. Thank you for sharing.
Wayne has his hand up.
Wayne?
Yeah, interesting conversation. I didn't want to interrupt. I like the idea, Becca, that you have a routine in the morning or whenever it's appropriate to take your inner critic, put it in the corner and say, basically, I'm on my own. What are your suggestions for when your inner critic crops up in the middle of the night in your dreams?
So that's a good one because those 2 years that I was with this state, I think I slept maybe 4 hours a night because those popped up at 2 o'clock in the morning and you can't go back to sleep. What I have found for that is several things that you've probably heard before. One is write it down, right? And keeping a journal next to your bed and just, because it turns out that the thoughts you have in the middle of the night, when you actually look at them the next morning, if they're written down, like you're like, holy, like what was I thinking? Like this is crazy, right? So do turn on your light for 5 minutes, write down what's really going on for you. Like, what is it saying? Where is it taking you? You know, and so therefore I can't sleep because now I'm thinking about these 10 things that need to get done and X, Y, Z, and just put it away. And the next night, like after you've gotten through your day, when you're sitting in bed, or, you know, when you like 6 o'clock or 7 o'clock, assuming that you ever get to dinner at 6 o'clock, but pick it up and look at it and say, huh, is this real? Like, should I give credence to this? And then have a conversation with yourself about when you're in this space of not 2 o'clock in the morning, about whether or not that voice is, I was going to say allowed to talk to you, but whether or not you should give it credit in the middle of the night.
So my takeaway, I certainly agree with write it down in the middle of the night. It certainly gets it off my mind and it works most of the time, but it almost sounds to me like the review the next morning or whenever you do the review is you're critiquing your inner critic.
And that's okay. And that's okay. And having a conversation. Okay, inner critic, did you need to show up at that point? I like
So
totally, right? I appreciate what you're doing for me, but did you need to show up at 2 o'clock in the morning? Nope.
So
Did that
it sounds,
nope. What?
I was just going to make the observation that you talk about the notice, question, act paradigm,
Mm-hmm.
and the notice is writing it down. The question is figuring out, do I need to do anything about this? And then you may go into an act if you determine that it's appropriate or not.
Right, right.
Actually, that paradigm is very interesting to me because I was raised on the OODA loop. Are you familiar with that?
Mm.
OODA. It's something military and government does a lot. It's observe, orient, decide, and act. So
Very close. Yeah.
exactly. Thank you. Very insightful.
Great.
No, we just have a couple of minutes left. So yeah, if there are no other questions, thank you so much, Becca. This was, I think, really enlightening, and I think everyone really enjoyed it and was really involved. So this was a great session. Thank you.
You're welcome. I'm glad to be here.
Have a good night, everyone.
Take care.